We are delighted to have each one of you here. Today's session is led by Ms. Catherine Benny, legal expert EHS compliance at Aprajita, who brings with her deep legal expertise in environmental, health, and safety regulations. She has been instrumental in driving strategic EHS compliance services across industries by helping businesses confidently navigate licensing procedures, statutory obligations, and the ever evolving landscape of environmental and safety laws. Today's topic is Navigate Compliance to EHS Law Confidently, Essential Insights for Leaders and Professionals in Restaurant, Food Services, and Hospitality sector. This webinar is especially valuable for professionals seeking clarity and directions in managing EHS compliances. Please note all your questions will be taken up during the Q&A session at the end. However, feel free to drop your questions in the chat box any time during the presentation. Let's start with the session.
Thank you, Shreya, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time to join today's session. So today, as Shreya have already mentioned, I would be walking you through the environment, health and safety compliances, which is relevant to your businesses like the businesses and restaurants, hotel, and other food service sector. I would be also touching the points based on the reality of EHS compliance in India, the consequence and risk involved, and also the risk mitigation methods as well. So I will share my screen. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah. So before diving deep into the crux of the matter, I would like to post a planned a question to you all. Like, I want everyone to think this through. Suppose, what if, missing fire extinguisher, a single expired FSSI license, or even a unhygienic premises or a very untreated kitchen waste could actually shut down your entire restaurant or hotel overnight. So this might be a very hypothetical. You might even think that this is a very hypothetical scenario. This might not even happen to you. Is the kind of thought process that many of them would be having. Like to be frank, it's happening every month across India. If you see the lives has been lost, a lot of businesses have lost their reputations, and even the businesses were closed just because they were non-compliant. They abide by a lot of other compliances. Maybe one or two compliances would be missed out by these establishments. So now I would like to begin with a very sobering reality check. Back during COVID time, the FSSI itself have sent various notice to a lot of restaurants for not abiding by the labeling requirements under the FSSI Act. There is a specific regulation for the labeling requirements, that is the Food Safety and Standard Labeling and Display Regulation 2020. Restaurants and labeling requirements, have you ever heard these two words together? I'm not even talking about the labeling requirements that get to see that on a pre-packeted foods, like if you see on a bottle of mineral water or a bottle of soft drink or a chips packet. Those are very known requirements. Around it, you would see a particular label. A specific quantity would be mentioned. Maybe a certain ingredients list would be mentioned. Certain ingredients list would be mentioned, and certain nutrition information also would be mentioned in that particular labeling requirements. But I'm not even talking about those labeling requirements. I'm talking about the labeling requirements for a particular food. that you see on that menu card, against each and every food on that menu card, there is a particular labeling requirements, showcased, actually mandated by the FSSI department. Are you aware of these labeling requirements? So many of them would be already aware of it, but actually these requirements is mandated back in 2020. If you see, these restaurants were being sent notice for not abiding by these requirements. So you have to mention, like, in the set of labeling requirements, if you see, there is a nutritional against each and every food items, you have to mention the nutritional information. You have to mention the allergens information, like nutrition information, like you have to mention, like, carbohydrate total, certain requirements, like added sugar or not, and also certain allergens information also you have to mention. And against each and every, you would have seen this on the menu card, against each and every food item you have to mention the logo, whether it's veg or non-veg. And also for certain food items you have to mention the calorific value as well. So it's not, it has to be mentioned in every places, not even on the menu, the physical menu card. You also have to mention that on the at every place wherever this particular food requirements is being showcased. Like, when you get go to a restaurant, you get to see, you get to scan the QR code, and on the particular phone, on your phone, once you scan the QR code, you get to see the menu over there, as well as on the website. If you have mentioned your food items over there as well, you have to mention the list of these informations. Again, there is a lot of exemption towards this. Like, the calorific value only has to be mentioned for those food service establishment which you have to procure, the establishment which have procured central license, or it has more than 10 outlets. Only in that circumstance you have to mention the calorific value. And also with respect to certain food service establishment, if you have less than 60 days in a calendar, if you're working less than 60 days in a calendar year, then it is being exempted for them as well. And also, in a restaurant, there are certain condiments which is free of cost, right? Like ketchup and all. So over there, for those condiments as well, you don't have to specify these nutritional information. And certain food, so there are certain food which you specifically curate for a particular customer, like specially made orders, which is not common for everybody, but you modify it based on the taste of the customer. In that circumstance, you have to specify these labeling requirements against each and every item. So for the special order items, you don't have to mention any nutritional information as I suggested. So those items are being exempted from the entire list. So this is not just one incident. If you see, if you take up the case of Delhi, the Delhi government has been working very hard to reduce the pollution and all, right? So they have been taking a lot of campaigns, a lot of strict checks, and as part of that effort, even Delhi Pollution Control Board have looked into hotels if they have abide by the environment rules. So they found that almost 350 hotels have not even taken the basic consents from the air, PCB, that is the Pollution Control Board. Under air and water, there is a consent to establish and consent to operate, that has to be procured from these pollution control board. These basic requirements itself was not procured by these hotels. And the second issue that they found was they have not set up a effluent treatment plants in any of these particular hotels. So for them, initial notice has been sent for actually procuring, setting up a proper effluent treatment facility, and then procuring the consents, whichever is required as per the PCB. There were certain hotels even abide by that, while certain other hotels were actually where they were they were becoming a repeated offenders, and even their hotels were gone. Their hotels were being shut down by these authorities. So these are not actually isolated cases. There are a lot of, even there was a case in Jaipur. Again, the proper licenses were not procured by these establishment. And even in Hyderabad, if you see, there was an incident where the basic hygienic requirement for a restaurant was not even provided for that particular restaurant, which let down, basic, a restaurant having a hygienic premises is a very basic requirement. If Because of that reason, the PCB have shut down, sorry, FSSI have shut down those businesses because of not having a very hygienic premises in the establishment. So these are not actually, isolated cases. It has been happening since a long time. It's happening even now. So businesses, if you see, it's if something big is hitting the business. Suppose a big loss is happening to a business, like you don't have a license. The authority have issued a particular notice to you saying that you haven't procured that particular license. What you do is you go to a third party, you get the license, and done. But after that, are you actually abiding by the conditions listed in the license? Maybe not. Or are you even looking towards those 100 other compliances that has to be abided by the business? So, so what the businesses are actually not taking that proper preventive measures for not falling into that same pit again. This is the main concern that is leading every business into the non-compliant category. So in our experience, if you see, there are mainly two scenarios. The first, we have, with respect to that EHS compliance, we have come across two scenarios. Like the first being, you genuinely care about compliance. You are eager to do everything right, but because your core focus is on running and growing the business. During that time, maybe a few things might slip through the cracks. Maybe it's just a missing document, maybe an expired certificate, or you won't be able to file a particular form on time. So it's not actually intentional. It's just that you don't have a legal compliance expert to back you up there. So, but unfortunately, if you already know that these small gaps itself is gonna risk your entire business. So uh, this has been the first scenario. Moving on to the second scenario, it's like we have come across that a lot of business where you have been in the business for a while, and you have started to feel that EHS laws in India isn't very strictly enforced. So compliance doesn't seem like a priority for you, or maybe you think like this won't happen to me. But that mindset, it can be very dangerous, because under in EHS laws, once the enforcement comes, it's gonna hit you hard and fast. So it's not actually carelessness. It's just, lack of that clarity. There's a lack of clarity. And the actual reality of compliance is basically the you might lack a comprehensive main reason behind it. You might be lacking a comprehensive compliance knowledge. You might be not having a very centralized ownership, or no, there's no particular person to own that particular compliance, or you don't have a tracking mechanism to take up these matters, to track the entire compliance process, or you don't even have a tech enabled system and process in line, because the scrutiny in both the state and central by this both state and central authority are increasing day and night. So if you don't have a very good legal expert or a legal backup compliance expert in hand, your businesses are going to be your business as a business owner, it's going to be very difficult for you to manage that particular situation. So now I would like to actually introduce you to all the to first of all understand the EHS laws in India. To begin with, I would like to specify the three pillars under EHS. As the name itself clearly states that the first pillar being the environment, which provide the regulations that governs the protection, conservation, and sustainable use of natural resources like air, water, soil, and all. And then health is the second pillar, where the laws are more focused on ensuring the food safety, public health, consumer protection, and even hygiene in business operations. So the last pillar being the safety. So these regulations are mainly aimed at ensuring the workplace safety, operational safety, and accidental prevention. So I would like to give a brief understanding on the applicable legislation to under each and every pillar, that is environment, health, and safety. The first pillar, that is the environment related legislations, it have a various set of legislations. The first being the Environment Protection Act 1986. So under that, there are various rules that has been prescribed. The first being the environmental impact assessment notification. This clearly specifies about the environment clearance certificate that one establishment has to procure. Like if you see certain hotels or any particular building or constructions that is above, if the built up area is above 20,000 square meter, it might be applicable for the hotels. And coastal regulation zone is if your building or a establishment is set up near a coastal area. And also environment protection rules prescribes the level of the level of sewage or effluent that can be disposed. And groundwater extraction specifically set up provides the guidelines related to the, if you're supposed, if you're extracting the groundwater, there are certain guidelines that you have to go through. And noise pollution is mainly the decibel, the basically, as the name clearly says, the level of limit, the noise limit that one establishment or establishment can produce. And the next set is the waste management rules, which include solid, hazardous waste, e-waste, battery waste, biomedical waste, and plastic waste. So these waste management rules clearly specifies how to manage that particular waste, dispose of the waste, and also how to treat the waste accordingly. So if you're a bulk generator or a bulk consumer, then accordingly that permissions has to be set. That depends on your nature of the activity. And the two major acts, that is the Air Prevention and Control Pollution Act, Water Prevention and Control Pollution Act. These are the two ones where the establishment before setting up, you have to procure a lot of one consent, and before operating as well, you have to procure this consent. There are a lot of compliances with respect to it. There are return filings. There are a lot of compliance under this particular. If you are releasing any, pollutant, air pollutant or trade effluent to the environment, then clearly you have to abide by the set of regulations, provisions prescribed under these two enactments. And then comes the Forest Conservation Act. This is specifically, as I mentioned about the coastal regulation zone, right? If your establishment is near forest area or a forest reserved area, then there are certain permissions that has to be procured and a lot of compliances also to be met. Energy Conservation Act is basically when your total connect load is going above a prescribed limit of usage of energy. Then you becomes a designated consumer, and there are certain compliances with respect to that has to be taken care by the designated consumer. Motor Vehicles Act we have brought in under environment because if you own your own vehicles, for example, like certain establishment might have their own vehicles, for safaris or maybe for delivery of the food, or like for example, if you take up the case of Domino's, it has a delivery, their own, apart from Zomato and Swiggy, they have their own delivery delivery, but we have to actually look into if they own those particular vehicles. If you are the owner of those particular vehicles, and you then there are set of particular compliances that has to be seen under the Motor Vehicles Act, which where the protection of the safety of the registration of the vehicles, the licenses of the drivers, pollution control certificates of the vehicles, etc. And then the groundwater state level also, certain states have got the groundwater resource management regulation. So at the state level also, there is a separate permissions that has to be procured. State Tourism Act is specifically not a mandatory legislation, but at some point of time, your hotel, if you want to promote the tourism through your hotel, if you have seen taking taking a lot of resort hotels and all in Kerala or any particular tourism promoted areas. Those hotels would have registered specifically under the tourism department of that particular state, and they are promoting tourism through the particular their hotel. So over there, the tourism department get to see if they are if you're abiding by the conditions that they have prescribed, and also the specific permission or approval has to be procured. State Heritage Conservation and Preservation Act is basically if your hotel is a heritage site. You would have seen in cities like Rajasthan, there are a lot of hotels which are being converted. Those were palaces and that got converted to hotels. So those are the heritage sites. Partially, they have to conserve it or preserve the areas which has been prescribed by the authority. So there are certain state which has these, the names are different for each state. It has these particular enactment in few of the states just to conserve and preserve those heritage zones, heritage sites. So this is with the environment related legislation. Now moving on to the health related legislation. As you're already aware, FSSI is the main health related legislation for a restaurant or a hotel. Under FSSI, if you see, there are various sub regulations, rules and regulations. The first one being the licensing and registration of food business. So in your so basically, when you have to get the license. If you're a petty food operator or a restaurant, then you have to procure. Or if your total turnover is below 12 per annum and all, you have to procure the registration. And above 12, you have to procure state and central license with respectively. And the other set of regulations like food for infant nutrition and food for special dietary use. Specifically, if you are serving it in your restaurant, you have to procure those regulations. You have to abide by those regulations. And labeling and display, as I mentioned, an incident that had happened in certain restaurants. There are certain labeling requirements specifically for a restaurant, and audits, food safety audits prescribes about the auditing requirements for a particular restaurant. And if you have seen, certain restaurants would also have a packed food, like it might also have a pre-packed food, or if they're packing their food and providing, they have to abide by the packaging regulation under FSSI. So these are the set of regulations and rules under FSSI. The other health-related legislations becomes the Cigarettes and Other Tobacco Products Act 2003. This is mainly specifying about the prohibition of smoking in public places. So you would have seen a lot of no smoking zone, no smoking signs shown in a lot of restaurants. So this is actually a requirement under a particular act itself in India. So this is not just because the restaurant owner feels like, you shouldn't have a no smoking, so you shouldn't smoke in my restaurant. It's not a act done by the particular restaurant owner, but it's actually a mandated requirement under the enactment in India. Legal Metrology Act. if your particular establishment has a weight or measures any kind of weight, whichever quantity, however heavy or however light it is, you have to get it certified from the authority and also verify it and stamp it every on a periodic basis. So this particular requirement is applicable for any establishment which is taking or having a weights of measure used in their particular establishment. State Excise or Prohibition Act, again, the name is different across various states. If your restaurant is serving alcohol, or your hotel, even in a banquet hall, or if you have a club, if you're serving alcohol, then you have to get a license for serving the alcohol. You have to get a special permission for serving the alcohol. Without that, you can't serve the alcohol or have a bar attached to your restaurant. And prohibition of smoking, even at the state level, there is a particular act, just similar to the Central Act. And then moving on to the safety related legislations, Electricity Act, as you are already aware, it any particular electrical installation, and even the safety of each and every electrical installation in your establishment have to be properly inspected. You have to procure, for example, even the diesel generator, if you install in your establishment, you have to get specific permission under the from the chief electrical inspectorate, and also if there is in case of any accident, then the particular intimation has to be sent to the authority respectively. There are a lot of safety measures, preventive measures listed under this act as well, which has to be abided by each and every restaurant, each and every establishment. And BIS, Bureau of Indian Standard Act, clearly specifies a set of standards that has to be abided by the fire when you basically the fire extinguishers that is set up in your any installation, fire extinguisher, and related to that any installations are there, you have to abide by the standards given under this particular code. Explosive Act and Petroleum Act. These are coming under PESO. This is coming, this would be applicable to only hotels. It would be applicable only in case if, for example, if you have a LPG gas above 100 kg and all, at that circumstance, you have to get a specific permission under gas cylinder rules. And also, if you are storing any particular chemical, diesel, petrol for any of the generators in a bulk quantity, then you have to get the specific license under Petroleum Act. Static and mobile pressure vessels and boilers act again. If you have any pressure vessels or boilers vessel or steam engines, the steam to produce the steam or hot water, if you have a specific boiler, then it would be applicable clearly for a hotel. Motor Vehicles Act I have brought in here as well again because there are a lot of safety related compliances that is coming up under the Motor Vehicles Act um, apart from the compliances related to environment. I mean, whatever it impacts the environment, apart from it, there is a safety related compliance also that is coming under Motor Vehicles Act. Aircrafts act as basically if your building is near any aerodrome, there is a specific height requirements specified for ease of landing and ease of takeoff of each and every flight. And also for some few other reasons, they have specified the height limit for a particular building. So this restriction is there for such buildings, and they have to abide by the compliance under this. State Fire Act and Lift Act, which is a very important two state level acts, which have to be abided by all the buildings wherever. If you see the Fire Act, in every the certain states have clearly mentioned uh, the height of the building where they have to procure NOC. Apart from it, they have also prescribed a lot of compliances with related to the fire. And also lift and escalators. If you are planning to install any lift in your establishment, then you have to abide by these enactment. And Municipal Corporation Act and Panchayat Raj Act specifically provide certain permissions that has to be procured at the municipal corporation level, or if your establishment is in a panchayat, then at the panchayat level. Like for example, advertisement license, trade license, Gram Panchayat NOCs and all are few among that. Electricity duty, it clearly specifies about the duty that you have to file every month. Certain state have, certain state doesn't, while it is clearly prescribed. It is at state level. It varies state to state. So that is with the legislations. Moving on to the category and volume of compliances. If you see, this is the kind of category that we have brought all the compliances of the legislations. Under that legislations, the compliances that is applicable as an industry, like a food safety, a food service establishment or a hotel, this is an approximate average count also we have brought in here. So the category being the first category, we have brought in the licenses and registrations, where the all the NOCs, all the licenses, all the registration certificate that you have to get, all the applications that has to be made, all the permissions that you have to gain, all these compliances are brought under the license or registrations. And that count approximately, we the count that we have brought in here is a very exhaustive one. We've taken the industry as a whole in our mind, and then we have brought in this particular count. So the next category being the filings. Under the filings, it can be a statutory communication or a notice that has to be sent, or maybe a return that has to be filed. So all those, even the remittance, we have brought in under the filings. So all these things are brought under the term filings, under the category filings. And then we are moving on to the register. This is the records, basically the record that you have to maintain in an establishment. It can be any types of records, any types of registers, which is mandated by the statute. And then is the fourth category is the display. It can be any notice that has to be affixed in the conspicuous place. It can be any placard or safety display board that has to be provided under the display. So all those displaying or publishing related compliances we have brought in under this category. And all other compliances, like any advisory nature or a health and safety related requirements or any specifications and standards, we have brought under this last category, specification and standards. So specification and standards is more like an ensuring task. Like in an establishment, if you have to ensure or abide by certain prescription or prescribed limit, etc., are being brought under the specification and standards. So this number, as I mentioned, license registration, what we found that as an industry, as an approximate exhaustive nature, we find around 106 license would be there, which might go up and down based on the nature of your business, as in what is the activity. Once we deep dive into your activities, we get to know if this particular compliance or category would be applicable to you. So we found around 106 licenses, 100 filings, 33 registers, 27 displays, and 242 specification and standards. So this is the huge number, as you already understood from this particular chart, that this is gonna be one. This might, as I mentioned, this is gonna go up and down, but this would be generally applicable to you. Now, I would like to give a brief idea on what are these licenses. I would like to touch point on these each category. briefly, these are the set of compliances that would be the set of licenses that might or might not be applicable. But in general, as an industry, restaurant, food service, any other food service establishment or a hotel, this would be the general set of compliances, sorry, licenses. So trade license being the first one, this is generally applicable to every establishment. Before setting up, they have to procure. This is coming under Municipal Corporation Act or under under the panchayat if it's set up in a panchayat area. And air and water consent. This is falling under Air Pollution Act and Water Pollution Act. There is two types of consent that has to be procured here: consent to establish and consent to operate. If you see any consent to operate and consent to establish has to be procured. There are various categories that have been prescribed by the establishment: red, orange, green, and white. Green, orange, and orange red category establishment have to procure this consent no matter what. And white category, they have to just inform the authority. A consent as such needn't be procured by this particular establishment. As far as hotels and restaurants, as far as hotels, there are recent notifications and all brought in where it would fall. It would, even if they have up to 20, 20 occupancy also, this would actually fall under the green category. At least green category is the requirement, uh, is what the government have mandated. So you have to procure the consent to establish and consent to operate based according to that. And also, with respect to FSSI license, there are three again. There is this registration that has to be procured by any petty food operator, sorry, for petty food business restaurants, where their turnover is less than 12 lakh. And if it's above 12 lakh, state license has to be procured. And in certain above, so hotels, if you see, above, there is two, three criteria for it. If you see above 20 crore, if your turnover is, the restaurants have to procure central license, and more than 10 outlets, you have to procure central license. And also some cases like if your establishment is in railway or in an airport lounge, they have to, without, as far as irrespective of the turnover, they have to procure the central license. And hotels, if you see, if they are 5-star rating and all, they have to procure central license. There are a lot of criteria that has been prescribed under by FSSI. Based on that, you have to see if you fall under state or central. And fire NOC again, you have to procure the fire NOCs. Fire NOC in an establishment, if you see, certain states have clearly mandated that irrespective of the height of your establishment, you have to procure the fire NOC. Like whatever level you are, however high your particular establishment is, you have to procure fire NOC. But certain other states have clearly mentioned about 50-meter height and other. It varies state to state. So accordingly, you have to procure fire NOC. Lift NOC is whenever if you wanted to erect or install or lift in your establishment, you have to procure this no objection certificate. And DGNOC. DGNOC is basically if your diesel generator is about 10 kVA and all, you have to get a specific no objection certificate from the electrical inspectorate. And if it's going above 15 kVA, PCB license is also mandatory. PCB license is mandatory if it's going above 15 kVA, and if it's like around less than 10 kVA, you have, or less than or moreover, minimum if it's going about 10, sorry, not less than, above 10 kVA, if your DG set is, then you have to procure the CEIG permission, and above 15 kVA and 15 kVA, PCB license is also an additional requirement. And moving on to the legal metrology license. as I was mentioning before, you have to clearly, if you have a weight and measure, you have to get it certified and also verify and stamp it periodically. Signage license, or you may even call it as advertisement license. These two requirements are coming up if you wanted to set up a advertisement board in your premises. That time you have to get the specific license or no permission from the municipal corporation or municipality accordingly. Health and sanitation NOC is specifically a requirement for in at the state level, where all the establishments have to specify, especially restaurants, have to get the health and sanitation certification from the authority. And also groundwater NOC. If you're extracting groundwater, you have to procure this no objection certificate. Excise license, as I mentioned already. If you are setting up, if you're serving alcohol in your restaurant, or if you have a hotel in which a banquet hall is there, where you will be, if you're conducting any function also, you're going to serve the alcohol. And if you have a club, the separate club license for serving alcohol. Separate, if you are going to attach bar to your hotel or a restaurant, separate bar license has to be procured, and it varies, and it is state wise. This has to be procured, and it's a very stringent license. It is very difficult to get this license. There are a lot of norms attached to it, lot of conditions that has to be applied. So this is one such license which has to be taken up by these establishments. And these are just very few. I would like to just showcase to you the other 100, 109, the whole 109 set of license to you all. There are around these many licenses, like if you see the permission to play a loudspeaker, or if you have, but you have to paying off fire license fee, and also groundwater NOC, as I have mentioned, fitness certificate of lift. So uh, all these things are the requirements under license requirements under the applicable legislation that which I have pointed out. And moving on to the filings. If you see there are various filings under each and every legislation. When it comes to fire service, every there is a compliance specific compliance report that has to be, like, more like a, in some states you call it as declaration, some states it's a report that have to be filed. You clearly specify that you have complied by all the conditions that has been prescribed by the authority. It's more like a on an annual basis, you're saying that you have complied by the fire prevention and safety related provisions. So you're filing that compliance report every year. And another file related filings is file related filings is you are getting it audited by a third party, and then you are submitting that certificate annually to the authority. And then moving on to the ground, and there is also one more requirement under fire, that's fire drill certificate. You have to conduct the mock drill every now and then you have to submit that certificate to the authority. And with respect to groundwater, you have to submit a monthly water level data. You get it tested, and then submit it accordingly every month. And there is also audit report that has to be filed of abstracting the groundwater. Your water quality also has to be clearly tested, and certification has to be obtained, and that certification has to be submitted to the authority. And with respect to the consumption of electricity, there is a half yearly return that has to be filed. And also with respect to each and every electric there is a prescribed limit that has been mentioned under the Electricity Act. If your electricity consumption is below that, then there's a self certification also has to be conducted, and that report also has to be submitted to the inspector. The sanitary certificate is applicable mainly if you are an importer of that particular certain ingredients or any particular goods you are importing it from the authority from outside. Then the sanitary certificate has to be clearly obtained. Then again, fire equipment. Yeah, there is one more fire equipment related fire equipment. If there is any particular fire installation in your establishment, then then you have to get that particular equipment or installation periodically inspected, and that report has to be filed. Similar related compliance for a lift as well. Your lift also has to be periodically inspected, tested, and that report also has to be filed. Now, I would like to show you um, set of filings, a set of filings apart from what I've showcased to you. This is a set of the around 100 filings are there. This is a few of them. Um, yeah, and then moving on to the registers, health and sanitation register, as you're already aware, in a restaurant and even in hotel, you have to have a period, regular check of health and sanitary hygiene, and you have to maintain a proper register, basically saying that if you have cleaned your premises properly, you have to maintain a record. And audit findings under FSSI, if there is you have to regularly inspect or audit the particular food findings has to be submitted. Then there are certain, if your restaurant is handling a perishable or frozen foods, then when at the receiving temperature of that particular good uh, food has to be recorded. Water consumption record is with respect to the groundwater. How much water are you consuming? That record has to be maintained. Records of sewage connections and septic tanks has to be maintained. And records of air emissions from generators and other equipment has to be tested and maintained. Waste generation and disposal records, that if the what amount of waste generated and how you're disposing it, all these details has to be clearly prescribed under that records. Records of periodic testing of DG sets installation. So this is a very important register, because DG set installations is a is has to be periodically tested. That record also has to be, if you don't maintain that record, suddenly when an inspector barges into your premises and they find that you have not, they claim that you have not taken up the testing and periodic testing. If you don't have a proof to showcase, then that's gonna impact you very badly. So this is a very important register that has to be maintained. Withdrawal record of daily withdrawal of groundwater, record of biannual inspection and emergency mock, and then the record of raw materials, ingredients, and other materials, if it whatever you are taking up in your restaurant. This again, these are very few, and there are more that is applicable to your establishment. And then moving on to the display. So display here under FSSI itself, there are huge list of displays that is mandated by establishment. If you see, if you have a e-commerce website, if you see, there are certain establishment which has a e-commerce website where you can order it online. So in that circumstances, if such establishment, they have to get a license or show display their license or registration on those websites. And also, apart from the website, they should also put up on the premises as well. The FSI license or registration, whichever you have procured, you have to affix it at conspicuous place in the restaurant. And this is one requirement which I was just discussing initially, like information on the menu cards, boards, booklets, or food service establishment against each and every food item or certain informations has to be clearly mentioned, like allergens information, calorific value, nutritional information, veg or non-veg logo are among that. And notice to indicate lift or escalator under maintenance. If you see, if you go to a particular building and you find that lift and escalator is under maintenance, you would see a particular notice affixed on that lift, just so that you're being this is more like a safety for the public, for not safety for the particular public. So this notice is a mandatory requirement under the lift act. Emergency numbers at premises is a requirement under the Electricity Act. So, and next to, either in the conspicuous place or next to the electrical installation, you have to put up all the emergency numbers. And instruction for restoration of persons suffering from electric shock. So this is mainly if there is any electrical installation in your establishment, or not even electrical installation, you should also clearly state the entire instruction how to restore a particular person if they are facing any electric shock. That instruction have to be clearly mentioned. And there are certain installation which where the voltage exceeds 250. In that case, there has to be a danger notice also that has to be affixed. And photocopies of fire safety certificate also has to be put up on the premises. Food safety display board on the premises, and also fire extinguisher. You should also say that where do the fire extinguisher being placed. The entire frame plan has to be affixed in a establishment. And this one requirement is under the Prohibition of Smoking Act, where you have to affix not notice on no smoking instructions. So you have to say that it is a no smoking zone. That particular instruction has to be affixed in the premises. Now, moving on to the specification and standards. This, as I mentioned, it's more like a ensuring task. Like you have to abide by these limits. It can be a more like a standards or a particular limits that has been prescribed, or safety related set of laws, that set of compliances that is being prescribed, which a particular business owner has to ensure to abide in an establishment. Few examples of it is limit for abstraction of groundwater. Abstraction of groundwater, there's a particular limit that has been prescribed. So they, for each restaurant, for the commercial use specifically, so that has to be applied by the restaurant or the establishment. And then you have to provide a emergency power for fire and life safety systems. So if there is any so if you don't, this is a one condition that is required, because when there is a particular fire and life safety system, and when there is an emergency that is coming up, the if there is no power in that establishment, that's gonna create more safety, a more unsafe environment. So this particular specification or health related, safety related compliances has to be abide by the restaurants. And provide fire extinguisher in appropriate numbers, size, and placements. Provide standby electrical generator to lifts. So every lift nowadays will already have the standby electric generator installed within the lift. That has to be overlooked by the business owners. And you also have to see a health and safe location for setting up the food establishment. Like whenever you're setting up a food establishment, just see if your surroundings are safe and healthy for the uh, public to approach. And periodic cleaning and maintenance of premises of equipment, pest control and prevention in food premises. These are the two requirements which is very mandatory for a restaurant specifically, even for hotels, because as I was stating about one particular incident where the businesses were shut down just because it was a unhygienic premises in Hyderabad. So this has to be abided by the restaurant. So there is waste disposal and management in food premises. There has to be a proper waste management and disposal system set up in every food premises. annual medical examination and inoculation of food handlers. The food handlers have to abide by you have to ensure that food handlers go through a medical examination, and if there is any illness and injury, that accordingly has to be managed. Personal cleanliness and behavior in food handling areas. These are the three things that has to be seen in a restaurant specifically. So there are numerous specification and standards prescribed, pre- uh, provided the under each and every legislation that is applicable to you, and it might or might not be applicable based on the nature and the activities that is being taken place in your establishment. So, this, so these are the huge, as you can see, there is a huge number of compliances that has to be taken care by each and every business owner if you're getting into a opening, or if you're going to open, or you already have a particular restaurant or a hotel. So along with this compliances, if you don't comply by it, there are a lot of risk also involved with it. If you see the prosecution, there are we have categorized. I would like to categorize under four brackets. Basically, if you see, there is a legal risk involved, operational risk, financial risk, and reputational risk. If you see legal risk, legal risk is basically even a prosecution of if there is any safety related or health related issues that can even go to an extent that would prosecute the members of the establishment as well. And fines and imprisonment is a very common a common legal risk involved. Like if I take up the case of air and water consent itself, it can the compliance, the consequence can go up to, even the fine can even go up to 15 lakhs. If you see, if you don't have a proper valid air and water consent. And even FSSI also maybe 3 to 1 year, 3 or 1 year of imprisonment, or maybe a fine of around 3 lakhs. That again, FSSI, there's a separate category. If you don't have an injury, then it's around 3 to 1 year. It will stay up to 3 lakhs if there is no injury. But if there is a non-grievous injury, then again it's going up. The imprisonment is going to go up to 6 years, and fine also is going to go up around 5 lakhs. And again, if the injury is grievous enough, then 7 years or even life imprisonment is also possible, and fine also can go up to 10 lakhs. So this is just one particular consent missing out, and you're going to face such a big consequence. And DG said also, if you see, 3 months imprisonment if you don't have a proper permission, and also maybe a fine can go up to around one lakh, or maybe you get both. And also that power supply also can get disconnected. So this is this is one this is a fines and imprisonment that even impacts every establishment, each and every license, each and every compliances that is listed down under each and every applicable legislations. There is a fine and imprisonment for non-compliance of it. And apart from it, there are some instances where code has mandated the shutdowns, or maybe a temporary suspension of business operation, cancellation or non-renew cancellation of registration or non-renewal of license is another. Apart from shutdown, sometimes your license, whichever you've procured, will itself get cancelled if there is a huge non-compliance. This is just the legal risk. Now, if we move on to the operational risk, it's gonna as you are already aware, it's going to disrupt your business activities. Your your premises might get sealed. Your work orders might get stop orders and all. Maybe your certain other project approvals, if you don't comply, maybe certain other project approvals also might get delayed if you don't comply by the other set of compliances. And also supply chain impact, like if there is any supplies and all, there's a operational risk involved over there as financial risk is very closely connected to all these. Like if you are getting all the fines and imprisonment, the penalty is very high. It's lakhs, it's in lakhs and crores, especially environmental related violations and all. There are a lot of, it's a huge penalty that is involved. Legal cost, insurance premiums, loss of revenue are few among these financial risks. Reputational risk is the most most impacted one. Apart from all this, internally you can actually manage. If you see, if you have money, you would be taking care of this risk. But again, it's not easy for anybody. But reputational risk, especially for a restaurant or a hotel, if there is any particular fines and or court mandated shutdowns, anything happens, it's gonna lose the public trust first thing. And you get a negative media coverage. You get blacklisted by the governments also sometimes. From by a lot of MNCs also. So these are the very very difficult position you put in yourself when you are not complying by any of these compliances. And so this it's actually it's actually not a very easy task for a business owner to comply by all this all alone. That's for sure. Now I now if you take up the unique challenge of these compliances, so if you see the environment health and safety laws itself, the actual compliance focus EHS laws actually doesn't involve the company and employees or the government, right? They impact the public safety more. Because if you see labor related loss or a fiscal related loss, it's gonna impact the employees, and in the second one, the government is the party. While with respect to EHS, public and the company is the impacting areas, and the risk is not just legal; it's gonna be reputational also. And also with respect to the key stakeholder impact, if you see here, non-compliance here affects not just operations but your brand reputation. As I mentioned, your brand reputation is at stake if you don't comply by any of these legislations, and you're being you are being charged a hefty amount of penalty or maybe a ordered or shut down, etc. Your reputation and public trust, safety, everything is at stake. And also uh, a very important factor that you have to take into consideration is the custodianship. Like if you see under other laws, the fiscal laws and labor laws, you have a particular department in your establishment to take care of these matter. If you see labor laws, there's an HR who's handling it, or HR or finance team who's handling it. And sometimes in fiscal laws also, there's a finance team that is involved in, or a CS also involved in the fiscal related laws or compliances that has to be managed in an establishment. But when it comes to EHS compliance, who handles it? Is there a particular department who handles it? No, because EHS compliance is actually scattered across departments. Some few compliance would be handled by admin, few would be handled by ops, sometimes by legal, and even HR and CS also comes into picture with respect to environment and safety laws. So it's actually scattered. There is this is not being exclusively handled by one department. It's actually leading to more and more confusions and gaps. So this is a unique challenge that every establishment would be facing. And also with respect to the compliance process also, while highly highly digitized. You're already aware. More of most of the compliances are available digital. Not all I'm saying, but yes. And also there are labor laws also. To an extent, it is digitized. But with respect to EHS, the digitization is very low. or government is putting effort. It might be digitized anytime soon completely, but still at this point of time there is the digitization is very low, and mostly there are a lot of manual tasks involved in it. You have to go to various department, there's a physical inspection, you have to come, you have to be, the documentation itself is very fragmented. So it's actually very difficult for a business owner alone to handle all this together. And the risk involvement also is very high, as I already mentioned. This might also go to a level of criminal prosecution, and maybe the members of the establishment is also gonna face this issues. So managing environment, health, and safety and compliances, uh, managing health and managing health and safety compliances involves tracking hundreds of tasks, dealing with multiple documents. You know that you have to fill out a lot of forms, you have to be up to date with a lot of changes, and so nothing, so that you don't miss out on anything. So, if you guys are aware about the National Green Tribunal itself, if you see, I'm not sure if you're aware, there is a special court set up just for dealing with environment related. Again, there is a restriction of legislation that is handled under this particular code. Now, just like company law matters are being handled under National Company Law Tribunal, there's a special court to handle, apart from the civil court, there's a special court to handle the matters related to environment. That's called National Green Tribunal. So there was, are you aware of how this National Green Tribunal was established? I would actually like you to uh, take you through a particular case called AP Pollution Control Board versus Professor M.V. Naidu. So in this particular case, it's related to facts is not so important. Like I was just see, it's related to a chemical manufacturing entity that has to be set up in a that has been set up in a near a reservoir in Hyderabad. So the case was related to that. In that particular case, uh, even they recommended setting up a special court with both judges to eventually led to the creation of National Green Tribunal. Even the Supreme Court of India realized that dealing with environmental matters requires deep technical expertise. So not just legal knowledge. So yeah, as you can see, it came to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court felt that, see, we are not expert in this matter. This requires a technical expertise in the particular matter. We are expert of only legal knowledge. So that's the reason at that point of time, Supreme Court felt that there has to be a proper separate court that has special court that has to be set up with one judge and one judge and also a scientific expert. That actually led to the creation of National Green Tribunal. Because environment compliance is not just about rules, it involves science, it involves laws, risk, and constant updates, right? So if the Supreme Court itself felt that it's the best to let experts handle such complex compliance, shouldn't you don't you feel that even the business owners have to do the same? Like you have to give your businesses to the professionals who breathe it every day. Especially compliance is the air and water for a lot for certain professionals. So if EHS EHS compliance has to be handled in a proper manner without any non-compliances, it has to be handed over to a proper EHS expert. So that's in where Abrajita steps in. Abrajita, if you are already aware that we've got 25 years of experience in handling the entire compliance system. We as you're already, this is our particular framework for the entire EHS compliance business framework altogether. If you see, we offer a very we offer a technology enabled EHS compliance framework through Simpliance Remo. It is not just tech we are providing here, we also provide the services along with it, so that your organization stays compliant all the time, and also doesn't miss out on any updates. What we provide is a huge list. To give you an understanding, starting from an end-to-end management, where we are all the statutory registrations and licenses, including their renewals and amendments. There's an end-to-end management that we take care at Abrajita. And also, along with it, we have got a customized, centralized customer service expert, so customer service agent, who would be supporting you through all the processes from the beginning till the end. We would be supporting you. That includes preparation and submission of all the registers, returns, notices, and also we coordinate with the internal technical team to ensure accurate and timely compliance. There's a real time tracking also involved with respect to the government updates, all the amendments, and we get into the configuration and mapping personally at each and every task level under the Simpliance Remo platform, and assisting in managing inspections and responding to statutory notices are also one of our expertise. And legal advisory support is also whenever you are feeling that there is a particular um, risk aware decisions that you have to make in your establishment, but you're not aware about the current requirement under the law. We do have a very very uh, expert team, expert legal team to support you with advices and opinions. So think Abrajida as a whole package of EHS compliance. We EHS compliance, and we would be more like a EHS compliance partner. So we take out the complexity of the compliances and make your entire business audit ready, safe, and legally secure. So with our framework, compliance isn't just a task. So it's more like an assured outcome. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you, everyone. I would like to be open for the any question from your side. Shreya?
Yeah, thank you everyone. And Catherine, thanks for the informative and thought-provoking session. We already have received few questions which are there in the chat. You can either address those, or if
Just
anyone else has a question, you can just say.
just give me a moment.
Priya, can you read the question?
Yeah, I'll read the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was Miss Vaishali. She wanted to see the FSSI slide. I think that
Could
is being shared. There is one question by Mr. Abhishek Tiwari. He's asked how many LPG cylinders do they need
so
to take a
yeah.
license for
So
storage?
so if you see, as I mentioned, around above 100 kg of quantity is being stored in your establishment, then you have to procure the storage license under the Explosives Act. I think all
Yeah, I'm just
compliance,
checking the next question. Uh, there is one more question. They have asked, please mention the specific compliance required for FNB inside a shopping mall.
So even inside a shopping mall, you have to abide by all the list of compliances under whichever I have mentioned. Being in a shopping mall doesn't exclude you from abiding by any of these compliances. If you see fire also, it depends. If your shopping mall owner have not procured that fire NOC specifically, you being the occupier have to procure it separately on your own. So it depends. So there is all the compliances under FSSI Act, under all the CT, all the related compliance under health, environment, and safety has to be procured uh, for a food establishment inside a shopping mall as well.
Okay, then there is next question. All compliances which will be followed for the restaurant with how many sitting arrangements?
Sorry, all compliance will be followed for the restaurant with how many seating arrangements. There is
Sitting
no
arrangements.
particular requirement. Seating arrangement is not a particular restriction towards the procurement. Abiding by any of these compliances. So the building and with respect to each and every legislation, there is a separate requirement. So seating arrangement is not specifically a restriction for abiding by any compliances. Yes, this compliances would be applicable irrespective of the seating arrangement.
Okay. The next question is it mandatory for trade license for all establishment covered under SNE Act?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. The next question is can you inform groundwater NOC to be obtained from where?
The groundwater authority.
Okay. There
I
is one
think
more. How many quantity of diesel can be stored for DG without explosive license?
so. If I'm not wrong, around if you see 30 up to 30 liters, you don't have to get any license. So I don't think any restaurants or hotels would go above that. Let's see. Any that depends.
Okay.
So
Then there is a question. What will be the regulations applicable for cafeteria in the corporate organization preparing and serving foods and meal?
as I have mentioned, like if your establishment is less than if your establishment in a calendar year, it would be less than 60 days. If it's operating only less than 60 days, only then there is a certain particular uh, there is a certain separate restriction. I mean, your nutritional information labeling requirements won't be specifically applicable to them. And also, with respect to licenses, also you have to procure state licenses. You have to procure state license for event caters based on your turnover, specifically inside your organizations, even if it's a cafeteria.
Okay. Then is there any checklist to do self inspection for canteen?
Is there any checklist to do self-inspection of canteen?
Canteen.
I will post this particular question to you on our mail ID. Our team would get back to you on this.
Okay. And there is just now one more question being sent. Many employees today offer PFESIC on higher salary as a best practice or retention benefit. To what extent is it
Um,
driven by statutory allowance? I think this is a
this
labor
is a
compliance question.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, Miss
So
Anusha, I will get it attended on email. Yeah. So, Catherine, this
so
were
I
the
think
only questions, yeah,
I
which were related to you.
I think the rest of the questions you can post to us on our mail ID. We can get it clarified. And if you have any specific topics that you feel like you wanted to know deeper in it, you can post those topics. If there are any adequate members, we'll see see if the topic is genuine. We can have another webinar on that. This today, what I have pitched in would be more in general. While while yes, do we need to get the license for the running mess and staff guest house? More than 100 people staying there. Yes, as I mentioned, there is no particular. See, which license are you talking about specifically?
Mr.
For a
Mustafa?
FSSI, yes. So that whichever depends on your, as I mentioned, even in a guest house, there is a star rating. If you don't have a star rating, at least a registration has to be procured by your guest house or a hotel, whichever you are calling it. FSSI, if there is a star rating, if it's above 5 star and all, there's a central license have to be procured, otherwise state. And even in mess, if there is no particular star rating, at least a registration has to be procured by the, depends on your turnover again. That has to be procured by hotel. So please, I think it's already 4:21. I would suggest you to post all these questions if you didn't find enough clarity already today. Post this question. We'll get back to you on mails. We'll clarify it over mails. And also, as I mentioned, please post if any particular topics has to be deep dive.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for your participation, for joining us. Hope this session was a value added and was a clarity session over the EHS compliance journey. So if there are any further questions, our email address would be marketing@aprajita.com. So you all can reach us out for your any further queries, or even if you all have any suggestions over the related topics for the next webinar. Yeah. Thank you everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Catherine. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah.